Good morning. Money is power, especially when it comes to technology. Developing technology is one of the most expensive things we do in the world. In 2019, I believe we had about $2.4 trillion of investment in R&D and in technologies. The United States roughly had about $722 billion of that. But over the course of time, from the 60s up to 2020, we've gone from about 69% of the research done in the world to about 31%, so less than half of what we used to do percentage-wise. This goes back to monetary policy. I'm concerned when it comes to technological advances between us and China in a nation that has anywhere from roughly $20 trillion more debt than we do and a smaller GDP, that they're basically held unaccountable while they buy our debt, and they don't have the same central banking system accountability. I'm concerned that we're being outpaced. We have no way to keep up in a fair market. Nobody's holding them accountable. Meanwhile, you discussed how important it is to have people in foreign status come to our schools and work in our universities. I taught at Georgia Tech and Morehouse for about 4 years. Georgia Tech is a leading school in the nation in technologies, and yet we can have a Chinese student come over here and actually take their technology back there while they're spending trillions of dollars more on research and development. I just don't see how we win that battle, because it's not a fair fight. How do we combat that?
Well, it's the key question, I think, ultimately here, in terms of one extreme is you lock everything down and you protect everything. That's not the answer. The other thing is you let it all be open. That's not the answer either. When you're looking at fundamental research, curiosity-driven research, a lot of people say, well, it gets published anyway, so what does it matter? Well, it matters because the pathway of doing that work and getting to the publication involves a lot of creativity and a lot of know-how that is very valuable, and it doesn't make its way into the publication. Publication is just the end result. So what we're trying to protect is the capability, the know-how, the sort of secret sauce that we have in our research laboratories like at Georgia Tech that results in the publications. I think, again, it's really a question of educating people, having policies in place at universities in particular, having resources that universities can turn to understand and vet individuals.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick because we're almost at 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Specifically, what I'm worried about is, give me a specific example of those controls. I know we have to have policy involved, but I don't know of them. And I'll tell you, when I was at Georgia Tech, we had people go to jail because of espionage, because of Chinese foreigners coming and stealing our secrets. And we spend about half of the R&D budget that goes to universities comes from our government, which in 2019 was about $40 billion of investment, and then everybody else invested in another $50 billion. So my question is, what are we specifically doing to safeguard those technologies?
Well, again, I think we're educating people to look for certain behaviors, right? We're asking people to disclose relationships, which is a self-disclosure. And then, but here's the key. We can use open source analytics to determine if they're being honest, because it's all just based on, okay, if they say what they're telling us who they really work with or who they're affiliated with, great. If they don't, well, we have no way of knowing.
Okay, so if they're coming here from China, they're affiliated with China. They're getting educated and going back to China with their education they're getting here that we put trillions of dollars into.
Right. But they're also benefiting our universities. We're learning from it, and 90% of those people are staying here. They're not going back. And so they're yearning for freedom. They don't have the freedom to discover and create in China. The talent programs in China, frankly, are not working. They're failing because all this repatriation of talent, they're not getting the folks coming back. We still lead in that area, but it's a precarious lead. So you're right.
I'd make the point, too, that of the 90% of people that stay here in the United States, we should probably be keeping a pretty close eye on them, because there's significant links back to the place where they come from, including the family that remains in place.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of pressure is put on them by the Chinese government to report behaviors, to report people who are their colleagues, students. Are you saying bad things about China? Are you supporting Taiwan? And there are considerable pressures being brought to bear on those individuals. So in some sense, we want to help them deal with that. But ultimately, it's the Chinese Communist Party that is the villain here, not the federal government trying to protect our capabilities, as you say, to make sure that we become and remain a global leader.
Right. And with that, I have about 24 seconds. I'm supposing that nobody has the monetary policy acumen to answer what we're doing to address the inconsistencies of the Chinese central banking system and its advantages over us.
I'll just add another topic for a future time is how they're doing debt financing of infrastructure all over the world and what that means, too.
Exactly related. Thank you.